Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. And tonight we have the director of the newly released Studio 666, BJ McDonnell, with us. BJ, thank you for being here. How you doing, man?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Yeah, just hanging out and
It's great.
crazy times.
It's great to have you back. And for our audience, Studio 666 is newly released and exclusively only available in theaters. And before we get to the movie, I want to ask you about that because no more than a few months ago, I was writing the movie theater obituary myself. But then
Yeah.
Spider Man came along, it blew past the $1 billion mark. So in the present day, what is your outlook on the future of movie theaters? Do you think they're coming back now?
I hope so. I mean, honestly, still love going to the movies. I mean, times have been weird with COVID, and people are still a bit iffy about going out and going to theaters for the most part. That I've seen a lot. The crowds aren't as much, but I really hope that theaters last because there's nothing like going to a theater and sitting with a crowd that's having fun, that's enjoying the movie. There's like an energy about it
Yeah.
that you don't get at home unless
No.
you have like all your friends over. But I hope the theaters do stay around. I don't think they're going to go anywhere. I really hope they don't. But it'd be a shame to lose the theater experience. It'd be a shame to like lose that whole like community getting together, everybody coming together to watch a movie and have a good time.
Yeah. And like I said, I was writing the obituary myself and preaching it to my audience, but then Spider-Man, man, it was like the old times.
Yeah,
It
right.
just broke every record, blew through the $1 billion mark within several days. So when
Yeah.
you found out that, well, first off, when did you find out that Studio 666 is going to have an exclusive theatrical release?
We found out after we were done with everything, and when Open Road bought the movie, like we honestly didn't think it was. We never imagined this movie was going to go to theaters. Honestly, we made this movie because we were just for the love of horror, for the love of like the old band movies and comedies. We just were having a good time with it and trying to do something around that. And then when we got the word that there was going to theaters, me and Dave and the guys were kind of like, oh wow, okay, cool. I mean, and Open Road's a great studio, but it's like it's a smaller studio, so
Mhm.
you're not getting as much backing as say like Warner Brothers putting out a big movie or like the Marvel universe putting out things like that. So we were really lucky to actually get a theatrical release. I'm really happy that people braved the theaters to actually go out and see our little horror film that we did. That actually is a little
And it's
in
wildly
horror film.
entertaining. I watched it. I finished it today. Like I was telling BJ before we went live, this movie is for horror fans out there. You'll love it. So there was a lot of secrecy surrounding Studio 666. Why was that? And when the announcement was made, it surprised a lot of people. Dave Grohl, the Foo Fighters in the movie. What's going on? So what was the deal behind all the secrecy?
When we started making the movie, it was just we didn't want anyone really knowing what we were doing. We didn't want anyone knowing that the Foo Fighters were making a horror film because honestly, it's pretty ridiculous. Let's be honest, it's crazy. Like, and we knew that. We were like, okay, in order to make this really work, we need to make sure that we kind of keep this under wraps. And like, when we decide that we're going to tell the world that we have it done, it's going to be a total shocker to people. They're gonna be like, okay, like, and that's kind of what happened when we revealed it. Was like people were like, wait a second, what is this real? Is this like a fake trailer? What's going on? But
I,
no, we want it was all planned. It was all the element of surprise. It was all like trying to keep it under wraps so it could be a special thing.
and it worked. It really worked because if you go out there and you talk to horror and non-horror fans, they know that Dave Grohl, the Foo Fighters, are in this new movie. Even if they're not horror fans, they know
Yeah.
that Dave Grohl is and the Foo Fighters are in this new movie, and they're like, "Is that a joke? Is it really there?" So, did you guys take any kind of special precautions while you were filming to make sure that it did not leak?
That's the thing when you're getting a crew together and everybody signs NDAs, and we basically told everybody, look, it's we're all lucky to be here working on this project, so let's keep it, as a very quiet, thing. Let's try to keep it all, all under wraps. And the crew, because the crew's all professional crews, they we sign NDAs all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so they know. But it was just for the love of everybody coming together and making this movie really happen. And everybody wanted to be as special as possible and not like really let it leak out at all. And like, do what we did, like just be
Yeah.
like, and here's this crazy poster that we first showed, and people are like, wait, it's what? And it's like, okay, and then the trailer comes out, and it's like total surprise. So yeah, the crew and everybody, I wanted to talk about it for the longest time, but obviously,
Yeah. You
you
have
don't
to
want to be
bite your
the
lip.
yeah, you got to bite your lip in as the director. You don't want to be the one that blows the whistle. So,
So let's talk about how this movie came to you to direct. First off, did you know Dave Grohl before this? Did you guys have a relationship? How did how did this movie come your way to direct?
it's funny because like it's their tour manager is a guy named Gus Brandt. He grew up in my hometown in Pensacola, Florida, where I used to be in a punk band, and Gus used to book my punk band for all these opening bands that would come through back in the '90s.
Yeah.
Um, all of a sudden, Gus took off and became the Foo Fighters tour manager. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Next thing I know, cut years later, I see Gus in Atlanta, and he brings me in, and I get to watch the Foo Fighters backstage, and kind of this is really cool, seeing all that stuff, and didn't really meet the guys then either. Then I did Brandon Trost, a buddy of mine who's a cinematographer. He did the Run music video, and he brought me in to do that video with them,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to meet Dave and work with Dave on that. Then cut to Dave doing Medicine at Midnight, and he goes to two of the producers that he works with, Jim Rhoda and John Ramsey, who did Sonic Highways and Sound City, and a bunch of his other, the band videos.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, "Hey, I have this idea. I want to do a horror film, and we need to find a director." And they're like, "Oh, you should call our buddy BJ. He did all the Slayer videos, and Dave knew about those. He's like, oh, awesome. So he wrote he had the pitch. They sent it to me. I took that pitch. I wrote kind of like what I thought would be cool to add to like his pitch. Wrote a whole lookbook with pictures and everything, like just like a presentation. We had a meeting. I presented all my ideas. I presented the lookbook of what I thought it should look like. We talked about directors. We talked about the way it should look, the tone and the vibe of the film, being a band, making a band movie first, making a comedy, but also infusing it with the horror. That's what I came in for. And we just hit it off, and that was it. A lot of mutual friends. And then I saw Gus. Going back to Gus, Gus showed up. I'm like, dude, what's up? Directing this movie.
So is Dave Grohl a horror fan?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely knows his horror stuff. Like we talked about all sorts of movies. He loves The Exorcist. Evil Dead movies. He was totally into those things, and the John Carpenter stuff, especially. We talked a lot about that because both had inspiration of growing up, with the John Carpenter films. So yeah, he definitely is a horror fan. He knew what we were doing.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil the. Okay, I'll just keep my
Yeah.
mouth shut. Yeah. Now, everyone looked like they had a blast. So when you were having these meetings and you met with Dave and you got to meet the rest of the band and you started shooting, what was it like? I mean, this is not their main career. They're not
Right.
actors, okay? So
Exactly.
did it, were you surprised on how well they adapted to being in front of the camera? Was it challenging for you?
No, I mean, honestly, it wasn't challenging at all. Like, because I was just my whole goal. Look, when we went into it, we were like not knowing what we were going to do, acting wise, how it was going to be when we were in pre-pro. But we always made a joke about it, saying, "Look, dude, all the other band movies, the acting's not that great, anyways." And we always thought it'd be funny, and it was a play on that. We were like, "Hey, if it's bad acting, who cares? That's what these old movies kind of throw in. That's like what they're doing. So it's kind of the perfect combo." I actually was surprised with them when they came in, because they took it as serious. They took it very serious. They came in, they never late, which they're rock stars. So it's
Yeah.
like they're actually on time every time. That's
Yeah.
crazy. How lucky are we? Yeah, but they came in and like totally kicked ass, and we would talk about the scenes. We'd talk about what happened before that day's scene, so they could kind of get into the mode and their character, which is themselves. you know. And I thought they did a killer job. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't ask for better people. Like to work, they were great. I thought they were just really great.
I love the satire that was put into the film with Dave and this image that we have of rock stars being prima donnas showing
Yeah,
up. The world revolves around them, and then we see Dave totally into character, which, like you said, is himself but not himself. I'm a
right.
rock star, and he's just losing it, going
Yeah,
over this demonic possession. Did you guys have like specific discussions that you guys wanted to push that satire, that stereotype, and really push it to the limit?
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows Dave Grohl is like the nicest guy in rock and roll, and it's like completely 100% true. It's fun to actually, especially for the Foo Fighters fans, to see bad Dave,
Yeah.
evil Dave. And that was kind of another reason why we took that course, is because it is like we wanted to do everything that was kind of like not what you would expect, and make it that way, and that, yeah, we definitely played up on that whole bit quite a lot. It's
So
funny because like Dave Kenny, like he's such a nice guy. Like Tony Gardner had to like make prosthetic eyebrows that like would frown because he can't really frown, like, or can't look like do like that. So
do
he had
that
to make
mean look.
eyebrows. It's really funny. Yeah.
So
He's
for
pretty
people
nice.
who don't know, like you said a little while ago, it's Dave's story, and he had two other writers write the screenplay.
Yeah.
So when it came time to film, was he very possessive of the story and how he wanted it told, or once you guys got on set, you had the reins and he was hands off when it
No,
came?
he wanted to basically. Sorry for cutting you off there.
No, it's okay.
No, he basically, um, it's his story, and he gave the pitch to them, and also with the things I improved on, with the backstory of the house and stuff, and then we gave it to the writers. The writers did the thing, and we read it a couple times, kind of went back and forth on some things that we were like, we probably shouldn't have that or this or that. Dave was very in control of like what the story is. It's his idea, story
Hmm.
by, and so he was. But literally, when we got on set, he wasn't like, he was all for just trying all sorts of funny ideas or like saying things that are totally off script, and we did a lot of improv in this movie too, which is like, letting the guys riff instead of just like having to memorize lines, because I don't think they would ever memorize lines. I don't think Taylor ever read the script from what I'm hearing. And but he'd still like would get what we were doing, and I would throw out lines or like what he would have to say to make sure we're doing it. But it was more fun that way.
Yeah.
Let the guys be themselves. Because that's who we're dealing with, the Foo Fighters. They should play the Foo Fighters.
And once you start watching this film, you very quickly forget you are watching a legendary rock band, but
Mm-hmm.
you start getting the feel that you're watching a garage band trying to get their career started. Because they're
Right?
just a bunch of normal guys, they're busting on each other,
Yeah.
and you forget that these are, I mean, they're legends and they've been around for 30 plus years. And you just see them as a band trying to get a start, and you see them as normal people. Did
Yep.
that sort of fall into place naturally, or was that sort of choreographed in some way?
We kind of choreographed it a bit, because actually the script, we made sure that in the script that the characters of themselves were actually true to kind of how they really are.
Mm-hmm.
So it was written actually to like, so Rami's characters, that's Rami. Like when you see Rami, that's Rami. Like he's very much that guy. Pat's Pat. Taylor's Taylor, and it really, we wanted to capture and make sure that everybody felt like, like when a crowd leaves the theater, or whenever they see it, however they see it later on, it's kind of fun to actually immerse yourself and feel like you're sitting there in a band practice, and you're really like meeting these guys and seeing who they all really are.
Yeah.
They all have a piece of themselves in this film that people now can relate to, because they're playing themselves, and we kind of wanted that.
And you hit it. You nailed it right there. And Pat Smear was very entertaining to watch.
Great.
He's a
He's the best.
funny guy. Is he just naturally funny as a person, not acting or anything?
He's hilarious. Like he's so awesome when he comes in. It's just funny because like you're like, all right, Pat, I need you to scream. He's like, okay. And he starts like screaming and going crazy and like doing his thing, and then he's like, is that okay? Like he's so like chill, and you're like, oh no, you did great, Pat. You're fantastic. He's just that's Pat. He's great.
His
I
character,
do things.
he was so entertaining, sleeping on the kitchen counter and all that. And for going way back, Pat and of course Dave were part of Nirvana, and then they went on to the Foo Fighters. Uh,
Having germs.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Uh, so besides Dave and Pat, was there anyone that really needed help on how that got nervous being in front of the camera, that you really had to step in and sort of coach and guide them?
No, I mean the guys are pretty comfortable. They've been in front of the cameras for a long time. They've been doing that. Nate, because Nate had a really big part in this movie, like really big.
Yeah.
And there was times where I'd have to like there. It's funny because there's this moment in the movie where they're like talking about what they're going to do, and I did these like push-ins on Pat where he's like, he asks the question, "What are we going to do?" And we do this like super heroic push-in on Nate where he goes, "We go save his ass," And it was funny because Nate absolutely was like, dude, that feels so cheesy when I do that line. I'm like, it's the point, but it's like this heroic moment, you know what I mean? So I had to kind of be like, no, trust me. Like when you see this moment in the film, you're gonna love it. There's like moments like that with everybody. Like they're like, is that okay? I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's gonna be awesome.
Now you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
I was saying I would throw like when we were doing like scenes and things. If there were certain things, if I felt like energy was being lost, as any director would do, I would start throwing out things like, Pat, you got to say it like this, man. You just saw a bunch of demons, and like, because Pat would be like, oh, those demons, and I'd be like, no, Pat, like those things are scary. You have to be like, those demons right there, those demons. And so he's like, oh, okay, and then he would be like, those demons. And like, he would start yelling and doing that stuff. There was like moments like that where you just had to make sure that they were having their the way they would act if you saw demons.
To be in the moment, to be in that moment. Now, your movies directing, you're notoriously known for your bloody but lighthearted gore, okay? And Studio 666 does not lack any of that. You had some amazing kill scenes in there. Was it a collaborative effort to come up with those kill scenes? Was it written into the script? Was it something that you came up with on set?
No, those kill scenes were always kind of like talked about, and those were the kill scenes that went into the script, because Tony Gardner, who did this, he worked with Dave on the Run videos. He does a lot of stuff for Dave, and he also does all the Slayer things for me. And like I've worked with him on other film sets, like on Zombieland, and I mean he's done everything from even the Blob remake, which is I love it. We said, hey Tony, out of all the movies you've done, what would you like to do personally as a kill scene? Like what kind of kills do you want to see in the movie, like in this movie? And so he's like, oh, okay. So he wrote down all these like different things that he always has wanted to do, but was never, he just always gets a script and goes, oh, we're doing that.
Yeah.
So we let Tony kind of take the reins of like coming up with ideas, because it's his shop and it would be fun for him to actually be creative. And we just took his ideas and we put them in the script of how each character was going to die, because Tony wanted to do that kind of kill, so we let him have his dream.
It was creative. I mean, all of them were creative, but my favorite, bar none, is the bedroom chainsaw one.
I think everybody loves that one.
That was very elaborate. Walk us through shooting that. That must have taken at least 6 hours to a full day worth of shooting to try to get that, done accurately.
Well, so yeah, it's funny because the room that they're in, that Whitney and Rami's in, is actually a guest house on that property. And you see it when the guys are eating barbecue and stuff. You'll see this little guest house. We never explained that's where Rami was, but you hear him say, I get the guest house. So anyways, we actually shot in the guest house, and, we were like, okay, we'll start the scene in here. But it's like, we kept going back and forth. Like, how nasty is it going to get in this place? How are we going to contain what we're about to do? And because we planned on trying to beat Nightmare on Elm Street 1's Johnny Depp scene, the amount of that kind of blood. And we were like, well, if we're going to do that and we shoot in this room, we're going to completely destroy this guest house. Like, it's going to be destroyed. So we shot the very beginning of that scene in the guest house, and then we had to build an actual 3-wall set, like a to size,
replica,
out in the parking lot, because we knew that it was going to get trashed. And that's what we did. We finished. We did the rest of it. We did all the scene all the way up until that moment. And that moment we shot out in the parking lot in a set that we could completely obliterate.
And obviously, what was used? Did you use like full body casting for the two actors? And I don't want to ruin the scene, but when you guys watch this scene, you'll know exactly. You're gonna love it. When it comes to the supporting cast, with Whitney Cummings as Samantha and Leslie Grossman as Barb, who you probably met on the set of American Horror Story.
That's why I cast her, yeah.
Yeah, she's great. Was it hard to put together the supporting cast, or did it all fall into place?
It all kind of fell into place because it was a lot of people that Dave knew and there's a lot of people that I knew. And so when we were going through, like, all right, who should we get? So obviously Whitney Cummings is going to be great as Samantha. and Dave and Whitney have been friends. So we just reached out and she's like, yeah, I'll do it. And it's gonna be awesome. And she was great to have. Leslie, I worked with on American Horror Story, and I just always, every time we read that part, I saw her because the season I did of that, she was like kind of like the comedic relief.
Yeah.
I did the Doomsday Bunker one,
Hmm.
um, and I always thought she was really funny, but she was perfect to play that part. Garland, that came from Dave, I believe. Um, Jenna Ortega, so the movie opens very dark, right? And I'll say that. And because I didn't want everybody, when people turn the movie on, go, oh, it's the Foo Fighters movie, it's fun. I
Yeah.
wanted people to go, wait a minute, what the hell is this? What about I just get into?
Hmm.
And I go, all right, we need a really strong opening female, like really good actress.
Yeah.
So we talked to Wendy, our casting agent, and she sent a bunch of audition tapes, and I went through a bunch and a bunch. Me and my wife sat and just watched, and then we see Jenna on You, and we see this performance, and I'm like, that's her. We need to get her. She's fantastic. Like she would be perfect for this role.
She
Reached out,
was. She
and she
was.
came right on in. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I wish had I known what's going on, I wish she had a bigger part.
And kudos
And
for that opener, by the way. That is a scary opener, and you're like,
it's
oh my god, this is going to be scary. So I like how it went to that, and then it sort of blends into present day Foo Fighters, and
yep,
it rolls from there. Now, the plot of the story: Dave Grohl has creator's block. They want to do their 10th album, and to find inspiration, he asks his manager to find him a place, a house that's going to spark inspiration, and that's what sort of it rolls downhill from there for them. Uh, do you know? Did Dave ever say? I'm sure, being in the music business for as long as he has, that he drew on real life inspiration for this story. Not the demonic part, but the writer's
it's definitely
block.
the demonic part.
No.
No, he didn't really say anything like this is how that that like this is what really happens. It wasn't like really, and he never really mentioned that. If that's the case, then I don't know. But I mean, look, we all know that everybody, band members, writers, directors, everybody has writer's block or
Yeah.
like you get that no matter what. I was in a punk band for 5 years of my life in my early my late teens, early 20s, and I know how that would roll through. You'd be like, oh man, we're trying to write these songs. It's not that good. We went through a stint where we made all this album. It was like the worst thing ever. It was like our second thing that we were doing, and it was crazy. And then we finally kind of came back. And anyways, that's another story. Uh, but yeah, I mean, the thing is, what you see on screen with what a band goes through, I
Yeah.
think translates on any level. I think that's also another reason why I like really feel like I did a good job with it, because not only am I a director and work in films, but I did come from music. I came from
Yeah.
punk rock. I toured with a band for 6 years. I recorded in studios. I did the whole thing where you argue with your bandmates and you get into those things. So it's kind of neat to see that dynamic with the guys, because no one ever does, and it is kind of true to form of how really things are in a band.
And that puts you in a unique perspective. And I want to ask you this, having been in the recording world, music world, and also in the movie world, I hear that the music industry is actually way more cutthroat than the film television business. Would you agree with that?
I think it's harder to succeed as a musician, especially nowadays with the internet and how accessible it is to get your music. If you're a band, you're trying to make money, like, we just have this album. All it takes is somebody to rip it, start sending it off to
Yeah.
people, doing that. I mean, I still pay iTunes. I still buy albums constantly because I support it.
Yeah.
I've been there to support all that. Yeah, when I was in my old band, we didn't have the internet. I'm showing how old I am, but like it was like punk rock zines, like Maximum Rock and Roll, and like these zines would come out, or compilations that would come out, Lookout Records, or like Fat Records, Epitaph doing these comps, and your main money source would be touring, which I think nowadays that's also a thing where people make, most bands I think still to this day make their money touring,
Exactly.
merchandise, sales and all that. Because I don't know how it is nowadays, but with the internet, I mean, I don't know how much people get off albums anymore. I think it's really based on selling out auditoriums and touring, you know?
I'll tell you, I'll share a little story with you that my lawyer, who's an entertainment lawyer, told me he doesn't even take music clients because the what we would call the distribution business in the movies and TV, it is just so, he used the word sleazy.
Yeah,
It's a. I mean, yeah, that's his word. He used the word sleazy. He doesn't even
yeah,
take music clients because
right,
they take most of the money, and that's why bands, like you said, make the majority of their money touring.
yeah.
And the more successful you are, the more people you bring in, the more money you make. Now, the bulk of your career, we talked about this the last time you were on. I mean, you are like a primo camera operator, Steadicam, the whole 9 yards. Um, do you have any thoughts? If you would like to, would you prefer to switch over to directing full time?
Yeah, I mean, that's always the dream. That's what I moved to LA for, is to always direct. I just happened to go on a different path, because I found camera operating very special. I found it very unique. I fell in love with the craft. I fell in love with the fact that whatever I'm doing and what my eye sees and the control I have of the camera is what the viewer is going to see on screen. I
Yeah,
fell in love with it. Steadicam, I fell in love with the tool to make those shots, and then onto the cranes and all that. I'm a huge. I still love camera operating. I still
yeah.
do camera operating. I'm 2 decades in. You know what I mean? Like I'm in a union and I want those retirement hours. I got to keep, I got to keep going. However, if things totally took off and it was full time directing, of course, that's the main goal. But I'm totally happy doing anything on a film set, like with what I've accomplished, like either directing or camera operating. I enjoy both. They're
And
both different, but
oh
I
yeah,
enjoy them still to this day.
and to your camera operating work, I mean, you are in like blockbusters. Let's see, since you've been the last time you've been on, which was last summer, The Conjuring 3 has come out,
Mhm.
Malignant. I know that you and James Wan, you mentioned last time, are really good friends.
He's a dude. I
Uh,
love.
and also Maverick, which is finally coming out this summer. I've been waiting for that movie for so long. And you're in the middle of filming, according to IMDb, Salem's Lot. Is if you can
I'm done.
say,
I'm done. We wrapped.
okay, you wrapped on that.
I'm home. I'm at my house. Yeah, we shot
Okay,
that in Massachusetts. No,
I
I'm
could tell all the cool stuff you have in the background. Can you say if that Salem's Lot is a reboot or a continuation? Are you allowed to say or no?
no. I mean, it is Salem's Lot. It's the story.
It's
It's
a
what
story. Okay.
I can say that. I can't really go. I can't tell any more
Yeah, yeah.
details
No,
about that. But
I don't. Yeah, I don't
I
expect
think
any
that
more.
Gary Dauberman, though, he did a stellar job on what people are going to see. The stuff that we did is really awesome. So I think this is going to be. I think it's going to blow people's minds.
Oh, I bet it is. I bet it is. So, I mean, experiencing both worlds of independent filmmaking as a director, and then you working on these big studio films like Maverick, The Conjuring, Malignant, working with these other great directors. Is it really completely two different worlds where the actors, the crew that work on these big budgets, as opposed to these independent filmmakers? Is it really two completely separate worlds?
It just really comes down to the tools that you get and how much time you have to shoot a movie. I mean, that's the thing. Like a small movie like Studio 666, we didn't have a lot of time to shoot it. You get these other big movies, you get 70 days to 100-day shooting schedules that are
Yeah,
like massive, and money's no object. You get the crane you want every single day, like where I would sit there and go, can I please get a techno crane for one day? And they're like, no, you can get this really crappy crane. So try to make it work. And you're like, I guess I'm going to make it work. Um, it's just different in that way, like where you get a lot of the toys, you get more time when you're on bigger budget movies. The smaller ones, which I think is kind of cool, if you come up like how I kind of came up, is I came up from the indie films, I came up from the smaller movies, and I learned how to make things work, how to manage your time, and how to, like, because you don't have time, you got to figure it out on the fly,
yeah,
and you can't sit there and go, no, what are you gonna do? No, it's like you actually have to be like, okay, what do you want to do? Oh, we're gonna do it this way. Give me this, give me that, give it
yeah.
boom, boom, boom. Because no one's gonna wait on you. And that's like the biggest difference is coming up from the indie world and learning that kind of stuff, I think makes you a better filmmaker just because you've experienced like being in like the gnarly trenches. And
Hmm.
then when you get to the bigger budget movies, you're now like you're in the captain's quarters of an aircraft carrier being like, haha, not that I'm comparing it to war and I've never been in the captain's. That's just
Yeah,
a terrible comparison, probably. But that's really what it is. It's hard. The indie films are much harder, but you gain how to make things work. You
Exactly.
really have to really think about it
Exactly.
instead of walking on a giant set and going, "Oh, we're doing that. Okay, great. Here's our techno crane. Here's our this and that. Here's all these guns with cool ammo that like on Hatchet 3, we were counting bullets because we couldn't afford it. Like, I'm not kidding. We were counting bullets. Like,
Wow.
about to run out.
Jeez. So, man, we're already at 30 minutes. So, like we talked
Okay,
about,
that's
Studio
good.
666 is available in theaters exclusively. Do we have any idea of when it's going to hit video on demand, Blu ray, and so on?
Blu-ray will be down the road. Video on demand, I think, will probably be. I mean, I don't know the exact date, but I feel like it's going to come out like probably in a month or two. Like, I
Okay.
mean, it's kind of like the average thing. Like when you see a movie come in. I mean, look, our movie probably was never supposed to go to theaters.
Yeah,
Very happy that it did. It's really cool that people went out to go see it, and I thank everybody that did. But yeah, I think when it comes to VOD and people can see it, it's going to be really fun, and
it
people can.
is. It is.
Yeah,
And guys, I cannot recommend this movie to you enough. I like a good horror comedy, but this is more than that. It's not like you're going to sit there and laugh. It's an entertaining movie. That's the best word I can use. It's very entertaining in the humor, in the gore, in the blood, the circumstances that people are placed in. It's a must watch. BJ, I want to thank you so much for coming back and sharing the experience
of
of
course.
Studio 666. It's great. You did a great job as always. Any final
Thank
thoughts you want to share before we go?
Support indie horror film. Get out there and see all the movies, the smaller films. Go see them. Go support them. Because they don't get enough love. We don't have the kind of big, huge marketing campaigns and the giant billboards. It's we're lucky to get what we got for our movie. But I say that generally for all people and all filmmakers making these movies that are smaller budget and harder
Yeah,
to make. Support them.
absolutely.
That's why we get diverse movies. That's why we get different free thinking things. Please support them.
Absolutely,
You know,
absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in live, and those of you who are watching later on.
thank
Again,
you.
a big thank you to our guest BJ McDonnell. The movie's called Studio 666. It's out in theaters now. If you're looking to go to the theater, this is what you got to watch right now. Thank you again to BJ. Till next
Thank
time,
you.
guys. On behalf of BJ and myself, stay safe, stay walking. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.